right now, all over the world, there are real people with real superpowers. Superpowers caused by random genetic mutations. Scientists are unlocking their secrets, and they're on the brink of making those powers available to all. Prepare to meet the real superhumans. Lapland, 200 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. Few places are as cold and harsh. It's January and the temperature is minus 26 degrees Celsius. This man has been running barefoot on ice and snow for 1 hour. He does not have frostbite, he does not have hypothermia, and he feels no pain. He has the power to live in the cold, to withstand temperatures so frigid, others would die. He does this by willing himself to heat up.
After training and experience, I found out we have a sort of thermostat here, and I know how to reach it. Not by hand, just by my mind.
Wim is a one-off, a genetic oddity. In the past, a man with his abilities would have remained a scientific mystery. But times have changed, and so have the rules of human evolution. We're no longer leaving the process to chance, to what Charles Darwin called natural selection. Now, scientists are taking control of the process through genetic engineering, and that means we can unlock superpower secrets and even replicate them. Soon, any one of us could choose for our children to be like the Iceman.
It's truly a watershed moment in the history of not only our species, but of life on this planet, in that we may be able to speed up evolution in a way that the Darwinian process would never be able to accomplish.
And the Iceman isn't the only one. In far corners of the world, there are humans that are the genetic harbingers of the future of evolution. They carry advantages that the human species may someday benefit from. In Turkey lives the most remarkable painter, Esref Armagan, an artist born without eyes. Esref proves that you don't need eyes to see. In Zurich, there's a woman with incredible sensory powers. When Elisabeth Sulzer hears music, she can see it and taste it too.
When I listen to music, I always see the colors and the forms.
This fusing of her senses gives Elisabeth a big advantage. She has an astounding memory. In Germany lives a misfit named Rudiger Gamm. His brain is a portal into the infinite world of numbers.
People call me the human calculator because I'm able to calculate better than a normal pocket calculator.
And he processes information at lightning speed.
6, 8, 9, 9.
Genetic engineering is on the verge of making it possible to pick and choose these traits, to create more advanced humans in the future. In Chicago, there is a scientist aiming to make the next great leap forward in evolution. Dr. Bruce Lahn, professor of human genetics, has made some of the most startling discoveries in evolutionary genetics in the last decade. And he sees a future in which we will redesign our own species.
Instead of the Darwinian process of random mutations followed by selection, we may be able to design mutations that would take us to the direction that we would like to go.
By mapping the human genome, scientists have discovered the building blocks for our genetic blueprint, giving us the power to manipulate our genes. And Dr. Lan is preparing to take genetic engineering to the next level.
Genetic engineering could be applied to improve our species. So the examples of people with extraordinary abilities, be it the synesthesia or resistance to cold temperature, or the ability to draw without having ever been able to see, or the ability to think faster, are testimony to the biological diversity within our species that we can tap into to make our species better in the future. And I think that that would fundamentally alter the rules of evolution.
Wim Hof is a mild-mannered mailman with an alter ego, the Iceman. This secret identity originated when Wim was just a little boy, and the cold almost killed him.
It all began when I was 7 years old, and I was going to school, and I almost froze. And I went to sit in a porch of a house, and I just went to sleep. The cold touched me like an enemy. This was my first contact with the cold. And I was just laying there until the ambulance came and took me to the hospital. And if nobody would have found me, I would have died. Just the white death.
But the cold did not kill Wim. It made him into a man who was irresistibly attracted to frigid temperatures. It's a bitter January in Holland. The canal is just above freezing, and yet Wim just can't help himself. This intense attraction to the cold escalated when he was 17.
It was in December. It's about 29 years ago, and it was the first snow in Holland. And the nearby field was covered completely with snow. It was white, it was beautiful. And there, I just popped up the idea to go running bare feet in the snow. And it attracted me more than ever before. I don't know why. And afterwards, these feet burned. It was a sensation I never had. It was very painful. But this feeling never got away. This was great.
Wim's attraction to the cold revealed to him his superpower, the ability to generate body heat under the harshest of conditions.
I've heard about Wim, and he is very interesting. He might have genes which allow him to acclimatize to that extent that he doesn't feel so much pain than the others. So it's also the question of how's your genetics.
Because of this genetic power to heat himself up, Wim has accomplished the most amazing feats. He's the only man ever to immerse his whole body in ice for 1 hour and 10 minutes. And he holds the world record for the longest free swim under ice with no oxygen and wearing only shorts, 57.5 meters. To hone his superpower, Wim routinely retreats to a sub-zero meat locker. At first, when he discovered his gift, he used it only to pull off extreme stunts. But the cold has grown to be something that he craves.
All the problems I have in the daily world subside when I do this. The cold and exposing myself to the cold is a great cleaning, purifying force.
Now Wim is preparing for something new, something more than just a stunt. And it's the ultimate test of his power, a feat no one in history has ever been insane enough to try.
I want to run half a marathon bare feet in midwinter in Lapland, beyond the polar circle.
In this barren landscape, 200 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, Wim will attempt to set a Guinness World Record, to run 22 kilometers in only shorts and bare feet. But there's someone standing between him and his dream. Dr. Oxa is a world-renowned cold physiologist. He's skeptical of Wim's abilities and wants scientific proof that Wim can increase his body temperature at will. So for the first time, Wim will be brought to a laboratory to undergo scientific scrutiny.
I also heard about Wim Hof that he's able to increase his body core temperature while being exposed to cold. And that would be very interesting to see if that's really happening.
Dr. Oxa is preparing a battery of grueling cold tests. If Wim cannot withstand Oxa's testing, chances are he won't be able to finish his run in the Arctic. But the Iceman is not the only superhuman. Another hero has emerged in Germany. Rüdiger Gamm, a man with outstanding mental agility. Rüdiger can do complex arithmetic in the blink of an eye.
Durch die Primzahl 109 teilen. 109 hat eine 108-stellige Periode. Das heißt, ich werde jetzt versuchen, eine zweistellige Zahl auf 108 Stellen hinter dem Komma genau zu teilen. Also brauche ich wieder eine zweistellige Zahl.
93.
93 geteilt durch 109. Null, Komma, 8, 5, 3, 2, 1, 1, 0, 0, 9, 1, 7, 4, 3, 1, 1, 9, 2, 6, 6, 0, 5, 5, 0, 4, 5, 8, 7, 1, 5, 5, 9, 6, 2, 3, 0, 2, 7, 5, 2, 2, 9, 3, 5, 7, 7, 9, 8, 1, 6, 5, 1, 3, 7, 6, 1, 4, 6, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 0, 8, 2, 5, 6, 8, 8, 0, 7, 3, 3, 9, 4, 4, 9, 5, 4, 1, 2, 8, 4, 4, 0, 3, 6, 6, 9, 7, 2, 4, 7, 7, 0, 6, 4, 2, 2, 0, 1, 8, 3, 4, 8, 6, 2, 3.
But crowds weren't always so impressed with Rüdiger Gamm.
1, 3,
As a child, friends were hard to come by.
4, 0, 8, 9, 9. I had no normal childhood. I think the other children were a little bit afraid of me, because before I started speaking forwards, I started speaking backwards. For example, this is forward. I was very bad in math. Backwards, 70, Deb Iref, Sovia.
And when the tape is played in reverse, the words are perfectly clear.
I was very bad in math.
And to this day, the people of Welzheim still find him as odd as an adult as they did when he was a little boy.
Die der Meinung sein, er ist der neue Antichrist, er ist mit dem Teufel im Bunde. Es gab Gerüchte hier, ich bin froh, dass wir in einer Zeit leben, in der man für sowas nicht mehr auf dem Scheiterhaufen landet, weil wenn ich mir überlege.
Some people called me the devil because of my ability to speak backwards. Some people are afraid of me. Many people think he's crazy, he's not normal.
But speaking backwards wasn't the only thing working against Rüdiger. Ironically, he failed maths repeatedly.
When I was at school, I was always known as the worst in math in the whole school. I failed school because of math, I think about 4 times.
When Rüdiger was 21, something extraordinary happened. Literally overnight, he was able to calculate better than a computer.
93 to the power of 5.
6,956,883,693.
This may mean that Rüdiger is what's known as a sudden savant, someone who suddenly and unexpectedly acquires a special mental ability.
248,830.
What triggers this phenomenon continues to baffle neuroscientists.
I discovered my power at the age of about 20, 21. I read a book about numbers. I found a table with the powers. For example, 1 to the power of 2, 2 to the power of 2, 3 to the power of 2, up to 99 to the power of 2. And I memorized a lot of these numbers. 1, 0, 0, 9, 1, 7, 4, 3. A few weeks later, I started calculating with these numbers. And this was the beginning. First, my life did not change. It changed 1.5 years later when I was in a German TV show called You Bet.
Hier ist Rüdiger Gamm.
682 Billiarden, 201 Billion.
Rudiger answers the question, what is 87 to the power of 12, instantly and flawlessly.
618.081.
Winning that game show was a big moment for Rudiger Gamm. For the first time in his life, he actually felt good about being different.
The moment I won this TV show, I realized that I am able to do things other people are not able to, and from this moment I was self-confident.
But at Australia's Centre for the Mind, founding director Dr. Alan Snyder, the world's foremost scientist on human cognition and Savant syndrome, has some questions about Rudiger's abilities.
What I'm fascinated about with Rudiger Gamm is he possibly on the autistic savant spectrum?
Dr. Snyder frequently conducts experiments that investigate peculiar abilities like Rudiger's. Abilities involving the instant recall of vast amounts of information.
Some of them can remember every single day of their life. Others have remembered almost everything they read. They have extraordinary memories. Now, these are people with brain impairment.
But Rudiger doesn't want to be classified as a savant whose talent is confined to mere memory skills. So he will have to prove Dr. Snyder wrong.
My greatest desire is that people in this world know my name in about 300 or 400 years.
And he may yet achieve this dream. When Rudiger goes to the Centre for the Mind, he will reveal to Dr. Snyder something that has never been seen before. Rudiger's ability to instantly calculate numbers and Wim's ability to survive in the cold offer powerful possibilities for the rest of the human race.
We may be able to genetically engineer these traits into more people.
Geneticist Dr. Bruce Lahn is the co-founder of the Center for Stem Cell Biology and Tissue Engineering at Sun Yat-sen University in Guangzhou. Here he can get open access to both animal and human stem cells.
I can pursue certain types of science here better than I can pursue in other places.
In his lab, Dr. Lahn routinely alters the DNA of living things. By manipulating their genes, scientists can examine the effects of genetic engineering before moving on to humans.
In the laboratory, we do this on a regular basis to genetically engineer more primitive organisms in order to study how their genes work. But to apply the same technology to humans would require a much, much higher threshold of caution because the room for error is much, much smaller.
Dr. Bruce Lahn is now going to attempt to genetically merge two different species. He wants to take a standard laboratory mouse and combine it with a rodent species called a podamus. Although these two animals look very similar, they're actually further apart as species than humans and chimpanzees. Dr. Lahn's team must first stabilize the microscopic mouse embryo without damaging it. And then attempt to inject apodamus stem cells into the embryo. The hope is that it will develop into a chimera, a creature created from two different species and one designed solely by humans. This is a difficult and delicate procedure. The merging of such genetically distant species has never been attempted before. Dr. Lahn is breaking new scientific ground. If he succeeds, his chimera will be the most ambitious of its kind ever created. And the next step could impact the human race. half a world away, there's a woman who could also have a dramatic effect on the future of the human race. Elizabeth Sulzer is a genetic original. Her genes give her the most fantastic superpower, one that fuses her senses.
I always see the colors. I cannot go anywhere without colors. I see a stripe, and there are many colors on it. When I'm walking in the street and I hear a car, and when a mobile is ringing, then I always see the colors, if I can hear the note. But also if I hear a dog barking or birds, then it's like music. Then there are many colors.
The head of neuropsychology at the University of Zurich tracked Elizabeth down and immediately began testing. He had a suspicion that she might have something called synesthesia, which is the rare neurological condition that joins senses. But what really caught Dr. Janke off guard was the incredible extent of her powers.
There is no other synesthete in the world showing the same ability like Elizabeth. So she is, I would say, she is unique in her ability.
There are fewer than 1,000 synesthetes in the world who see color with tone, and fewer than 500 who have taste with tone. But she is the only person in the world to combine color, musical intervals, and taste. For all the magic the colors bring, it's a show only she can see.
My childhood was quite a dark time. I always felt somehow special and isolated also from others. When I was 16, I was out with a friend of mine and it started to rain. And then I heard a G, and at the same time I saw that the G was blue. And then I went through all the scale and I saw that each note has his own specific color. And this was the first time when I was conscious of the colors. Then I asked my friend if she can see colors when she listens to music, and she found that I'm a little bit strange. Yeah, it was just a strange feeling that I'm alone and not as the others.
And Elizabeth is not like others. When Dr. Janke scanned her brain, he found it hardwired like no one else's.
We found there is a specific connection between the color areas, between the taste areas, and between the auditory areas.
Dr. Janke found that the neural pathways in Elizabeth's brain connecting her sight, sound, and taste appear to be surging with activity. In average people, these connections are almost dormant. But before Dr. Janke had diagnosed her synesthesia, Elizabeth had no idea what was happening to her and was discovering new dimensions to her power.
A few weeks after I found out about the colors and the notes, I realized that I also have a taste on my tongue when I hear two different notes in a certain distance. A second minor is sour, a second major is bitter, and a sixth minor is creamy. I didn't know what it was. I was very frightened of myself, and I thought that I will get crazy.
But synesthesia isn't just found in Elizabeth's brain. It may be in her very genes. Neurogeneticists at the University of Oxford are looking for these genes, and there are those who are very interested in the results. Dr. Jamie Ward at University College London believes synesthesia has real benefits.
Researchers in Oxford are now trying to track this gene down, and what they've already found is that there are certain markers on the genome which seem to be linked to synesthesia, but nobody's actually found one particular synesthesia gene yet. And I think it's only a matter of time before researchers are able to find this.
And when they do, it opens up the possibility that one day soon, all humans could see and taste music. Elizabeth is constantly bombarded by colors, tastes, and sounds. As intriguing as her synesthesia is to the scientists, they don't live with it. Elizabeth can never turn it off.
It would be very nice to find somebody who has exactly the same as me. But I'm not sure if I will find somebody like this.
But her chances are about to get a whole lot better.
Hello?
Hello, is that Elizabeth?
Yes, it's Elizabeth.
Oh, hi. This is Jamie Ward, a neuropsychologist from University College London. Is it convenient to talk?
Yes, of course.
Scientists at the University of Oxford are gathering synesthetes from around the world for genetic testing. And so Elizabeth will finally get the chance to meet others just like her.
And I can arrange for you to meet other people with synesthesia more informally, so you can share your experiences with them.
And superhumans are emerging all over the world. At the University of Toronto, perception and cognition psychologist Dr. John Kennedy is investigating the abilities of an astounding man, Esref, the blind painter.
Esref is a blind man who has been drawing pictures since he was a child. He draws astonishingly well. Many people would say he draws better than many sighted people. Esref lives in Turkey.
Esref Armagan has a genetic mutation that caused him to be born without eyes. This seeming defect has given him the most remarkable power. While he paints a landscape he cannot see, this artist is changing everything science has assumed about vision. Esref has never seen light. He had a difficult childhood and had to overcome great odds to discover his gift.
50 senelerinde anadan doğma görmez olarak doğduğum için tabii ki normal öylelikle başladı. O diğer görmezleri takip ediyorlarmış. Yani takip ediyormuş ve benim onlar
From the first moment that he drew a picture, Esref knew this was his calling, and his blindness was not going to stop him. What's astounding about Esref's paintings is his use of color, shadow, and composition. And most importantly, perspective. The way he draws objects receding into the distance. It is not meant to be possible to paint such recognizable and well-composed images without eyes. At Harvard Medical School's Neurology Center, scientists are mystified by Esref's abilities. They want to scan his brain in order to find out how he does it.
Esref is doing something that we thought was locked in the visual brain and was only possible if you had visual input.
And it's the way Esref grapples with three-dimensional space that has the scientists particularly excited. But more than anything, Esref wishes to be known as a painter. not a blind painter.
Şöyle anılmak isterim. Yani dünyayı hiç görmemiş bir insan olarak parmak uçlarıyla.
But for now, he's agreed to help the scientists. And Dr. Kennedy has devised a most ambitious experiment. He wants to find out if Esaraf truly understands perspective.
And my experiment is going to be asking Esaraf to draw a particular building in Florence, in Italy, that was the source, the origin of the discovery of perspective, how we show depth in pictures.
In 1413, Filippo Brunelleschi stood on the steps of the Duomo, the great cathedral he designed and built. He looked across the square at the baptistry, an octagonal Roman structure. It was this building that finally unveiled to him the equation for perspective. The complex geometry makes it extremely difficult to draw, even if you can see.
Can he tackle a complicated object like the baptistry and handle all its parts and draw it and get all 3 dimensions of space and get them right? If he can, this man is astounding.
Esraf's ability is redefining our understanding of what it means to see. But in a future world where genetic defects like blindness could be deleted, a person like Esraf might not be born at all.
People will come to accept genetic engineering once we get a healthy baby that is indeed better off with the changes than not, be it greater cancer resistance or greater intelligence.
And eventually those healthy babies could also be given superpowers. But the early stages of this new era of evolution sit in this Petri dish. Dr. Lahn's rodent merging experiment is tricky and slow going. But if all goes according to plan, in approximately 21 days, a new form of animal will be born. The creation of new animals and the tinkering with their genes is not the ultimate goal of genetic engineering. It's just the beginning.
Genetic engineering of our own species would happen sooner or later. So I think the question is not if, but when. So resistance is futile.
But putting humanity in charge of its own evolution is a risky business.
As is the case with any groundbreaking new technology, genetic engineering is going to have a great deal of potential to do both good and evil.
Dr. Bruce Lahn believes that genetic engineering could drastically widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots. If those with money can afford to design more advanced children than those without, it's possible that humans could split into 2 entirely different species: the enhanced and the unenhanced.
And there will be such dramatic biological difference between the 2 groups of people that a society becomes not just socially stratified, but biologically stratified.
In an era when even superhero powers are available for sale, those with money and influence would inevitably be the first to harness the potential of a new genetic technology. Multimillionaire inventor and author Ray Kurzweil seeks a future in which aging and death are eliminated, a future in which he gets to live forever.
The idea of healthy aging is an oxymoron. I mean, aging means a loss of your faculties, a loss of your senses, a loss of your sexual desire, a loss of your mental abilities and physical abilities. It's not a desirable process. We've rationalized death as a good thing because we've had no alternative.
But Kurzweil thinks that all that is about to change.
LDL at 65 is pretty optimal. We don't want it any lower than that, I don't think.
Both of those are within the optimal range at this point.
He's under the care of Dr. Terry Grossman, who's what's known as a longevity specialist.
I've added no flush niacin And I've added omega-3 fats.
For a price, he helps prolong the lifespan of his clients, and he's trying to help Kurzweil live long enough to reap the benefits of a revolution in genetics.
We don't yet today have all the means to provide for indefinite extension of life, but within 10 years, we will actually fully understand biology, 10 to 15 years.
One little problem: Mr. Immortality may not make it to that point. He carries genetic markers he doesn't want, type 2 diabetes, and a long family history of heart disease. So Kurzweil's longevity expert has devised a strategy. Daily, 8 cups of green tea, 250 supplements, intravenous supplements weekly, alkaline water, and a strict exercise regime. All this so he can hold out for another 15 years.
We can turn on and off genes, we can turn on and off enzymes. It's a whole new concept. We couldn't even begin to think about that until we had the genome, and that was only 3 years ago. We're still in the early stages of this process, but this will be 1,000 times more powerful than it is today, 10 years from now. And we're really going to be able to reprogram our biology. And 10 years from now, this will be a very different world.
Along with his quest to live forever, Ray Kurzweil has a knack for predicting the future.
Ray Kurzweil has been described as the ultimate thinking machine by Forbes magazine, calling him the rightful heir to Thomas Edison. Please welcome Ray.
He's built an empire on his ability to predict technological trends, and his predictions are often shockingly accurate. He foresaw that a computer would beat a person at chess, the collapse of the Soviet Union, and the spread of the World Wide Web. Kurzweil says we'd better get used to dramatic changes, because they're happening faster and faster all the time.
The rate of technical progress is itself accelerating. It's not a constant. Although our intuition is that the current pace of change will just continue unabated. According to my models, we're doubling the paradigm shift rate every decade. So in the next 50 years, we'll see 32 times as much change as we saw in the last 50 years.
So, as Kurzweil sits surrounded by his prized collection of porcelain cats, sipping green tea and popping pills, he contemplates a future where he too will have superpowers.
A lot of people define human in terms of our limitations, a limited lifespan, limited physical powers, limited mental powers. We've been changing that, and I very much want to be around for a long time to see really the remarkable changes that I think we will be experiencing.
But Kurzweil is 58 years old. Neither his father nor his grandfather made it this far. 15 years could be a very long time. But he's got a plan. The real superhumans are traveling to far reaches of the globe. Each of them is about to undergo intensive testing, and the impact of those tests will ripple through their lives and outward toward the rest of the human race. And Dr. Lahn's own experiment is about to become a reality. Apodamus stem cells have been successfully injected into the mouse embryo. This augmented embryo will now be reinserted into the mother, and a 3-week gestation period will begin. And on the other side of the planet, Wim will be placed under Dr. Oxer's microscope. Oxer is a cold physiologist, and he's skeptical about the extent of Wim's powers. So he's prepared some extreme cold tests. If Wim does not respond well to these tests, his dream of a half marathon in ice and snow could be at risk.
With Wim, I would like to see what are his responses to a cold exposure, which is relatively harsh.
All of Wim's vital signs will be closely monitored while he's submerged in near-freezing water.
We will be exposing Wim to 8-degree water until his core temperature reaches 36.5 degrees level.
Below 36.5 degrees, for any normal human being, there's a risk of hypothermia. As Wim prepares himself in the neutral chamber, Oxa's many probes are tracking his heart rate, skin temperature, metabolic responses, and most importantly, his core body temperature.
When an average person is lowered into 8-degree water, the first reaction is a very intense pain. The pain will be so intense that most of the people won't endure there more than 5 minutes. I see your heart rate, that it's 51 beats per minute, which is very low. Okay, now I will ask you, how do you feel? And you can point out which is your choice.
Neutral, slightly cool.
Do you have any pain?
No pain.
No tingling?
A little bit tingling.
Where?
Just around the shoulder.
Okay, and numbness?
Numbness, no.
Okay. When we exposed Wim to 8-degree water, we didn't see any gasping response from him. And that's unusual. For an average person will always have a gasping response to a sudden cold exposure.
At the 7-minute mark, the average person would be in such extreme pain, it would be verging on torture.
You have been immersed now for 7 minutes.
What can you conclude, Doctor?
So far, the metabolic response is also very low. You don't really have very much difficulties in staying there at the moment.
Wim concentrates on accessing his internal thermostat and does what only he can do. He warms himself up.
And your core temperature is 37.2, which is about 0.3 degrees higher than it was when we immersed you. You have a very good adaptation.
After 15 minutes, most people would be shivering violently, find it hard to think, and speaking would be almost impossible.
Dr. Uxa.
Yes?
Tell me about your hobbies.
At the 25-minute mark, the average person could be unconscious. Shivering would have stopped, and they may appear dead.
Do you have pain?
No pain.
Okay, tingling?
Yeah, a little bit tingling.
Numbness?
No.
And shivering?
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
What's the core temperature?
Now your core temperature reached 36.5. We will end the experiment.
After a remarkable 25 minutes of exposure, Wim has proven the extent of his superpower. He can regulate his core body temperature.
His metabolic responses, they were good. He has the power of producing heat. Okay, how are you doing?
Yeah, okay.
Good, let's take the mask off.
Yeah, please.
Your heart rate, it was very low, or it was on the resting level. But when you came in here, you had a very intense metabolic reaction.
Wim can now set his mind to his half marathon. Dr. Oxa has to admit that while this run would be practically suicide for most, Wim could actually pull it off.
Wim has a very good chance to do the run. I think he will make his half a marathon.
Back in Boston, Ray Kurzweil is working hard on his plan to live forever. He's having his blood tested to see if all of those pills he's taking are actually doing anything.
I'm certainly going to try to live indefinitely. I can't imagine why anyone would want to die.
I feel quite pinched.
Kurzweil thinks our biology is a lot like outdated software, urgently in need of an upgrade.
Okay. We can't just rely on our genes. If we just rely on the natural biological process, it's to rapidly decline and age and move towards disease and loss of our faculties and die. And that's the natural program.
On the eve of his 59th birthday, the present he wants most could come from this vial of blood. The vial is being analyzed for its triglyceride, cholesterol, glucose levels, and other aging markers. In 1 week, Kurzweil will find out if he's on his way to immortality or simply growing old like the rest of us. Rudiger Gam has flown halfway around the world to Sydney, Australia, to to try and prove that he's not just a sudden savant, but an extraordinary mastermind. Dr. Snyder is convinced that Rudiger's mathematical talents are really not that mysterious.
Is he what is known as a spontaneous savant? Savant is someone who has a peculiar, special skill, which I see almost entirely as mimicry. It's interesting, but it's not creativity to me.
But Rudiger wants to prove that what he can do is more than just a memory trick. First, he must make it through Snyder's testing, designed to see if he notices details but misses the big picture, like autistic savants do.
What we decided to do with Rudiger was to give him some tests for how literal he was.
The first test will show if Rudiger has the ability to decipher a vast amount of detail in mere seconds.
I'm going to show a number of dots on the screen, and I want you to guess how many are there. Okay.
Autistic savants almost always get the number of dots right. Average people don't.
130. 180. 140. 110. 120.
How did he do?
Rudiger got 4 bullseyes.
Oh, he did very well.
Snyder is convinced that his tests are exposing Rudiger as a classic savant. But Rudiger is not so easily labeled.
You will see a picture, and the picture will change. You will tell me where it changed.
He must find the subtle difference in the two pictures. Autistic savants usually spot the change.
The original, change. The original, change.
But Rudiger doesn't spot it.
I'm not very good in this.
Rudiger is seeing the big picture here and not the detailed change. All of a sudden, Snyder's savant theory is called into question.
The jet engine changed.
Snyder is puzzled and has come up with one final determining experiment.
Rudiger, if I was born on November 23rd, 1965, what day of the week was that?
I think it was a Tuesday.
A Tuesday. Yep, that is a Tuesday.
Many autistic savants can calculate calendar dates, but the thing is, they don't know how they do it. Snyder wants to know, does Rudiger truly comprehend the mechanics of what he's doing?
Our team decided that we would change the question, which would require a different prescription, and we wanted to see if he could do that. On what years between, say, 1930 and 2030 did November 23rd fall on a Thursday?
I never did this before, but I will try. I think I could do it. In 1933, in 1939.
But he's not stumped. Right on the spot, Rudiger comes up with a set of rules for solving the problem. A new algorithm.
1950, 1961, 1967.
And my God, he was able to change the way he normally calculated things and come up with the years, and then he corrected them for leap year.
1944.
1944.
1972, 2000, and 2028.
That's right.
Okay.
That's really interesting, and you say you've never done that before. Very good. Very good. You are not an autistic savant type of person. That showed me that he is not a slave to a particular algorithm. He was able, on the spot, to change it, which is sort of extraordinary.
Snyder's savant theory just doesn't stand up. And more than that, Rudiger has just done what some scientists thought was mathematically impossible.
What's so interesting about this is you invented an algorithm very quickly. You know, there are scientific papers that claim there is no algorithm, which is interesting. You've obviously invented one. I expected him to be this weirdo savant who would, fall into the spectrum of autism, and we would be able to pull out that and show you exactly this, how he does it from being subtly autistic. But he wasn't. It's much more mysterious, much more interesting.
87,247,837,972,493. Despite his history-making algorithm, Rudiger isn't satisfied. He's already planning to perform another breakthrough calculation, this time for millions of people. In London, Elizabeth Sulzer, another person with a mysterious genetic gift, is about to let science in on her secrets. Dr. Jamie Ward has a theory that synesthesia does more than just fuse the senses. He believes it may also give her a superior memory.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello.
Thank you for coming to London.
But he's about to discover her ability is far more advanced than he ever imagined. It's not just music Elizabeth sees in colour, it's also in the words spoken to her.
Maybe you could describe to me what you see and where you see it when I say a word like window. So what colours would you see, for example?
I see white because of the I and black because of the O. And the W in the beginning, this is olive green.
So you would see the word in colours about 3 or 5 metres away?
Yes, always.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting that your words are kind of outside of your body and a few metres away. Not everybody has this. It's quite unusual.
So, Elizabeth, what I'm going to do is
Dr. Ward is going to read off 15 words to Elizabeth, and he wants to see how many she can remember.
Right, so let's give it a go. Drum, curtain, bell, coffee, school,
Curtain,
parents,
house,
moon,
garden, coffee.
She got 10 out of 15, which is slightly above average, but that's not the real test.
Yeah.
Okay, now we'll do a different test that's going to test your memory for colours.
This.
Elizabeth doesn't know it, but this new test is designed to distract her. Dr. Ward really wants to see if she can remember the original list of words after half an hour of new information.
Now what I'd like you to do is try and remember words from the original list that I read aloud to you. Could you do that?
Okay. Drums, curtain, bell, coffee, school, parents, moon.
In fact, Elizabeth remembered 14 of the original 15-word list, which is 4 more words than she recalled immediately after hearing them half an hour ago.
Noise.
This is almost unheard of.
House, river.
Okay, that's very good.
The results from Elizabeth's experiment were really interesting. What we found is that she does have a better ability to remember information once she's learnt it. So although she learns the list of words as well as other people, she doesn't seem to forget it like other people do. So it's almost as if it's burnt into her memory, and we think that she's almost certainly using her colours to do this.
Elizabeth has proved Dr. Ward's theory, and an enhanced memory is something we could all benefit from. But before that becomes a possibility, neurogeneticists at the University of Oxford need to locate the genes, and Elizabeth has volunteered to help them do it.
What they're doing is trying to find hotspots, if you like, on the genome which might be linked to synesthesia.
The £10 million study is searching for the synesthesia genes. Synesthetes are gathering from all over the world to volunteer their DNA. Soon, Elizabeth will at last get the chance to meet someone just like her. In the years ahead, geneticists like Dr. Bruce Lahn will manipulate our species' genome, and in the process change what it means to be human. Dr. Lahn's chimera is not only a breakthrough in species merging, but it also impacts on human life extension. The chimera suggests that if such separate species can coexist, then human cells may also be able to survive in an animal embryo. This creates the possibility of organ farms, where replacement human body parts are grown in animals.
So imagine that someone with kidney failure would be able to get a new kidney from a pig raised in one of these farms. So the idea is to grow human cells and perhaps even complex human organs in an animal.
Bruce Lahn's genetic research is quickly blurring the line between science fiction and reality. The rules of evolution have changed, and what used to be left to nature is now in the hands of humans.
Humans are probably best defined as a species that is constantly dramatically improving. And if genetic engineering could make that happen faster, all the better. And maybe we're actually more human in the broader sense to embrace that change.
These real superhumans have opened the door to astounding advances in science, pushing our species towards its next evolutionary step. No species has ever had the ability to direct its own evolutionary course, until now. The rapid advances in genetic engineering will affect us all. And in the very near future, our species will change, whether we're ready or not.